I used to wonder how Jerry Garcia made even the simplest melody sound so emotional. Over time, I realized it wasn't about fancy licks, it was the tiny touches he added along the way. Today, I'll show you exactly what they are and how you can start playing with that same kind of feel. And Ship of Fools is the perfect example of this. Guitarists jump straight into soloing without ever learning the vocal melody first, but when you skip the melody, your solos can sound random, like you're just guessing instead of saying something. But Ship of Fools is a great example of learning that melody, because Jerry would typically just play around the melody every single time he took a solo on this tune. So let's just hear the melody, just the first phrase of it, just straight up like this. Jerry always knew the melody first and then used it as the foundation. So you want to start by just learning that too. Oh, and if you're digging this idea of building your solos from the vocal melody, I put together a free mini course called Make Your Guitar Sing. It goes even deeper into this approach, and it's linked just down below if you want to check it out. Once you know the melody, Jerry's magic wasn't just what he played, it was how he played it. And you play the right notes the wrong way and it can still feel flat. So let's break down some of these techniques that he would use to really kind of spice things up and add his own, way of articulating things. And starting off with hammer-ons, he'd just be constantly hammering on notes and pulling off too, right? So that's kind of the other way, the opposite side of the coin. Throwing that stuff in there, slides, which actually in this solo he didn't really slide much at all, but throwing in lots of slides. And then bends, a big one, and he's doing a lot of whole step bends, especially right here, bending to this note. So a lot of that whole step bends, but the thing that I think really makes him unique is his half step bends, and he'd be doing it, like right here, where he's going. So he could have just gone, but then he plays this note by bending it right here. Bending from what would be definitely outside of the key, because we're in B flat. Here's your B flat, so you're playing a B. That's like the worst note you could play, one fret above the key that you're in, the root note. But he does it so quick and bends up to the second, right? And it's over a different chord. But yeah, that's one great spot that he's doing that. Another one is over here where he's going to an F chord. He's bending to the F note, but he plays half step below. And then it is over here. Bends this note here. It just adds so much more to it. And sometimes Jerry wouldn't just stay on a single melody. He would weave arpeggios kind of right into it. So those chord tones. And if you stick to only the scale, your solos can sound kind of one-dimensional. So here's, some spots he would add some arpeggios right out the gate. We're playing a B flat. He's way up here too. Yeah. Also, this is just, if you're not used to this is an area he'd be playing all the time. Just great to be real high, but he's got just the tone that he liked rather than playing over here. He'd play up here so much, and he's got that arpeggio. Or sorry, this one right here. So it's just like a first inversion B flat triad. The melody again is, but he's going. So it's slightly different, but you can still hear how that melody's, it's in there, and he's weaving the arpeggio in there. So that's one spot with the B flat. Then we have an E diminished 7. So, which actually, he's not even playing the E. That would be right here, which when you play the whole thing, what song does that sound like? But it's got that slip knot. feel there, but he's got right here, he's going, which he's throwing this note here, so it's not verbatim an arpeggio, but you can kind of hear that in there. And that is actually just the melody. Bending up to that note instead, you know. So it's gonna be like one note off, but it's almost the melody. And that's a good reminder that the melody is often playing around chord tones. And that's gonna give you that way, by learning the melody, the way of sticking to playing with the chords and not just like one scale. So there's like that byproduct of learning the melody. So by blending in arpeggios like that, Jerry, you know, he added this unexpected kind of color without losing the song's feel. And if this way of playing is clicking with you and you really want to make your solos sing like Jerry's, again, just check out that free mini course, Make Your Guitar Sing. It is packed with very simple steps to help you kind of develop this feel and way of learning melody sets. It's just linked right down below. Now, another part of Jerry's touch is he didn't just play notes, he created movement. You know, without tension and release, even a good melody can feel kind of stuck and it's just in one place. So a great example of this is right here. Over the D minor to C minor part, but you know, of course, we're still way up here. He's just bending up. He's bending to a D and from a whole step below going. And just by bending that up and hitting that note over and over, it creates a lot of tension. And then he resolves it, brings it like that, and get, you know, that little pull off, little quarter bend. He gives it that really nice bluesy edge and then resolves it. So you got to have this tension and release, you know, and Jerry could just take that, you know, like a single note like that. He could bend it up, hang on, and keep pushing that tension. And when he finally let it resolve like that, that's what made his solos feel so emotional and alive. Now, the final layer that made his playing so expressive, his touch, literally. I mean, even if you play the right notes and the right techniques, it can still sound kind of stiff without the right feel, like this. But he had a lot of vibrato. Especially on like the last note of a phrase. And sometimes he would just stay in one position for like this phrasing control. You know, all of it is right here. You know, you got to think about the way a singer is. Like, they have a much more limited range, a typical singer, than a guitarist. And they're still not going to just sing with the lowest note they can do and the highest note, go all over the place. You know, they're like, you know, like they're not like that. They're going to stay with, it's going to be more comfortable, a smaller range. So you just stay typically more in one position when he'd be playing this very melodic way. And then when he's jamming out, yeah, he'd be, you know, utilizing the fret bar a little bit more. But he also played with a lot of picking dynamics. So you can hear the first phrase is kind of loud, then it gets kind of loud, I should say, and then it gets very quiet. So it's like. And now that was a little extreme, but you get the idea. It's like, it's not about just playing stuff the same way. It's about having some phrases be really loud, some quiet, and it creates a lot of contrast and it really draws, you know, the listener in. And another thing he would do is he would often just end on the root. And that's what he does here at the very end of the solo. It's, you know, it makes it feel like it really comes home and feels really, you know, nicely packaged and complete. It's those, you know, small touches, the feel, the phrasing, the dynamics that made Jerry's solos, you know, really sing. And, you know, learning to shape melodies the way Jerry did, it's made my solos sound so much more, you know, emotional. But doing this isn't just enough. It's those small touches, the feel, the phrasing, the dynamics that made Jerry's solos sing. And, you know, learning to shape melodies the way Jerry did, it's made my solos sound so much more emotional. But doing that isn't enough, because there's another side of his playing that really makes it all come alive. How he jammed with just total freedom. So check out this video here where I break down Jerry's blueprint for jamming, and I'll show you how you can open up your solos even more.